live on the Facebook. And once we do that, okay. All right. We're going to start recording in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to the Black Sheep Recovery Warfare podcast, where it is our mission to debunk the lies of the enemy and announce freedom to those still lost in the darkness and addiction.
Welcome to the Black Sheep Recovery Warfare podcast. I am Brother Phoenix, and my co-host tonight is the Holy Spirit, because my normal co-host is out sick for the night. Palmer is not with us. He is at home. He's not feeling well, so if we can just give him some prayers and send some love his way. I am joined with a Black Sheep Warrior princess, a good friend of mine named Jolana Rushton. She's got a lot to talk about tonight, but first I want to talk about our first conversation. It was about a year ago, and I'd say probably a week or so before she had contacted me through Messenger on Facebook, I had been talking to Daddy, the All-Father, the Alpha, the Omega, and wondering to myself, am I making a difference? And, I know I've experienced some growth, but I know you see me, God, but am I an example for others? Am I a light for anybody else? I was questioning that. I had the enemy in my ear, it was like, just basically lying to me, calling me people think you're faking, people think you're a liar, you're just faking. And through Jolana Rushton, who I'd never met in my life, just out of the blue one day sent me a message. And would you like to share how that conversation went?
Yeah, you had posted something, your testimony,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched it, and then it was something like tag somebody that is making a difference, and I had tagged you in that post, and then I inboxed you
Mm-hmm.
and told you about my husband, and that your testimony was inspiring, and how I've learned through watching your stuff on Facebook and stuff that addicts are people too. And they recover, and someone loves them. And
that's right.
Yeah.
So basically, let me ask you this. What were your feelings toward drug addicts prior to, and we'll get to your testimony, but prior to all that, how did you look at drugs and how did you look at drug addicts?
Well, hated drugs, but drug addicts, I passed judgment, called them names.
Well, I'm just flat out offended by that, Jolana. I did not appreciate that, and just end the podcast, just end the live, and I'm just kidding. So basically, in a roundabout way, you just looked down on them.
Yeah.
You didn't fully understand the magnitude of what drugs actually literally did to people, especially and their loved ones, and that happened to you, didn't it?
Yeah, God gave me a big piece of humble pie.
Did He?
Yes.
Okay, so. Well, let's just jump right into it. Let's start from wherever you want to start in your testimony. Let's start where actually I'd like to hear about your relationship with how you met your husband and or would you rather start even further back with your father?
I'll start with my father. My dad was an alcoholic all my life. He drank every day, but he was a functioning alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he worked every day. He wasn't what I would call violent, but he had mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
He drank nonstop. He went to jail several times, many DUIs. My mom worked nights, so me and my brother was home with my dad, and me and my brother would have to drive my dad home, and we were only like 10 and 11 years old.
So you were driving at 10 or 11 years old. See, I can actually feel that, because I started drinking when I was about 11 years old with my grandfather. My grandfather literally had me driving him all over Jackson at 11 years old, sitting on two, like those fishing cushions that you had in like a John boat. I'd be sitting over there and I could just barely reach the pedals, but I'd drive him all over South Jackson and Raymond. I mean, all day, every day, and drinking with him.
My dad had a Willis Jeep, and I was scared to death to drive it.
Oh, those things are big.
So my brother, being 9 years old, and he's like really short. He's not tall like me.
Yeah.
He would drive it.
Yeah, that reminds me of that scene from Oh Brother Where Art Thou when the little guy was sitting on those books and he had a broomstick pushing the pedals. Yeah.
And my dad died in 2018 from a DUI related crash.
Oh wow.
He was it was in Robin Hood, same street my husband died on. He was in a Nissan Titan and he was doing about 60 when he hit that oak tree.
Wow.
Yeah, and
you were on scene, weren't you?
Well, that's what he hit the oak tree and it, hit it head on. So, the motor and everything's pushed into the cab. I got to the scene. My mom was already at the scene. No first responders were there yet. Y'all
were the first ones there. I could imagine that. How old were you?
That was in 2018, so in my 30s.
Okay.
And I remember walking up to my dad's truck. My mom had fainted because she seen him.
Yeah.
He had blood coming out of his nose, his mouth, his ears. He had a chrome toolbox that came through the back glass and that had hit him.
Oh. And so this was like on impact. I mean.
And there was blood everywhere.
Wow.
My dad passed away, and I was holding his hand when he passed away. He kept calling me Mama.
Oh.
He thought I was his mom.
You look like his mother.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
And he kept telling my mom, I messed up. But when he died from his injuries, I was holding his hand, and I was singing the song to him he used to sing to me when I was a kid, You Are My Sunshine.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it was hard. My dad's death took us, like, all by shock,
Of course.
Even though he was an alcoholic, he was my dad.
Of course.
And my mom, she, they were married for over 40 years. That was her first love, And my brother was in prison when my dad died, so he didn't get to attend the funeral. He didn't get to say goodbye or anything like that. But, I really thought that my dad dying, when my brother got out of prison that last time, that he would, it would be an inspiration and he wouldn't go back to drugs, but he fell right back into drugs.
Yeah, I had that same issue through the close deaths that I went through with my mother and my father and my little sister. Every single time I had a loss in my family, that's exactly where I ran to, was to drugs and alcohol, because I didn't want to feel that. That was my coping mechanism, and I didn't want to feel that. I didn't want to feel that pain. I didn't want to feel the loss. I just wanted to, if I could have just slept through it, or just numb myself. And what happened throughout all that drug use for me was it caused me to have this heart of stone, and I got to where I didn't feel anything toward anybody or anything, and it affected everybody in my family close to me, my daughter, the girl I was with at the time, and so on. So I can relate to your brother. Is what I'm saying.
My brother, his addiction, I want to say it started when he was a teenager, but he didn't start messing with meth until he was like 19. And he would attack us. He would attack my dad.
Physically?
Yeah, physically.
Okay, so this is where I'm getting into the title of the show. It's called the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome. We can literally tell you that I can literally tell you, and I'm sure your brother could attest for this, and I know you can, by your experiences with your husband, is that there's this myth that with drugs and alcohol that what your true feelings towards somebody or something or anything will come out when you're intoxicated or when you're high, and that's just not true. And it causes you to be just mean and hateful. Yeah. You could be a very loving, gentle person, and when you're high like that, it turns you into something that you're not, which is a Jekyll and Hyde syndrome.
Yeah.
And you've been through that with several people in your family, your husband, your brother, and your father.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So continue.
My brother, he was really come over to the house. He had been stealing from all us.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been stealing my mom's medicine. Mm-hmm. He stole my TV and sold it to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was confronting him about my TV, you know, because I wasn't going to go get it from the person he sold it to. It wasn't their fault. I told him, you know, you owe me money for my TV. Well, he attacked me and pulled me by the hair of my head. And, you know, when you're on drugs, you got super strength.
Yeah.
He put my face in the heater.
Oh.
And my dad was trying to get him off of me, but he pushed my face into the heater. And my dad finally got him off of me. And it was like 2 weeks later, he went back to jail.
Yeah.
And he was in jail for 10 years. And he got out, and he came to stay with us at our house. And at some point in time, him and my husband started doing drugs together.
Let me stop you right there. Let's talk about your husband for a second. So back up to when about look, I want to hear how your husband and was toward, like, how did y'all meet, and you know what his personality was toward you, and such.
Okay, met through Facebook.
He probably didn't have a filter on. Let's talk about filters for a second. Let me stop right here, just gonna lighten this up a little bit. So after Jolana sent me those messages, the first time we talked, like, our relationship has evolved into us just back and forth sharing memes about filters and people that use them. And what I want to share about that is I don't have a problem with filters, but there was this one instance where I was at a CR meeting, and this girl walks up to me and she's like, "Hey, John, how's it going?" Like I'd known her all my life, and I'd never seen this girl before in my life. And I said, "Hey, you know, because I hate not knowing the name or whatever." And I was like, but I told her, I said, "I'm sorry, I don't think we know each other." And she's like, "Yeah, I know you on Facebook, and my name is such and such." And then when the conversation was over, I just got curious, and I went back and looked, and the difference in her Facebook pictures and this was like very deceptive and all lies. I was like, that is not you. So anyway, back to your story.
Yeah,
it's all manipulation. It's like catfishing, and I'm just like, I'm not in agreement with it. Like the filters that are kind of, you know, a lot of it, at least you can tell, you know, who the person is, but it's just like clearing some stuff up, you know, like wrinkles or, you know, some scars.
You don't want to look like a Kardashian, then somebody meets you and you look like the Crypt Keeper.
Exactly. It's like, wow, that's very deceptive, and, you know, and anyway, so back to your story.
He jumped in my inbox on Facebook in 2012, and he's like, "Do I know you?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, we're friends on Facebook." I said, "I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook."
Yeah.
He said, "Well, my name's Robert." I said, "Oh, I can see that because your name is beside your picture." He said, "Smart aleck."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." And then, you know, a couple of days go by, and he inboxes me again, and he's like, "What are you doing?" You know, the typical WYD, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, nothing, just chilling." He's like, "If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me." I said, "Well, I don't have your number." And he gave me his number. A couple of days go by, and he's like, "Are you going to call me?" I said, "Do you want me to call you?" He's like, "Yeah, please call me." So I called him, and he answered the phone. He sounded so country.
Yeah.
And he called me Tater from the beginning. He's like,
Tater?
He's like, "What you doing, Tater?"
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, he's like, "You want to go out sometime?" I'm like, "Where do you want to go?" He's like, "I don't care." So we agreed to meet at Applebee's.
Anywhere with you, baby.
We agreed to meet at Applebee's on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me, and he's like, "I'm going to be in my work clothes," because I had to work.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "So I'm coming in my work clothes, and I'm going to be greasy." I was like, "Okay, that's fine." He gets there, and I was just not aware of how tall he was and how tattooed he was. And
you was automatically in love, wasn't you? Yeah, it was like head over heels from the jump.
He pulled up in this old, crusty Ford truck, and I got out of my car, and I'm standing there, and he walks up to me, and I have to look up at him because he is so tall.
Man, wow, you're tall for a lady too. I mean,
Yeah,
I've stood next
like,
to you about my height, so he had to be about 8 feet tall.
He's like 6'3", 6'4".
Wow.
And I looked up at him, and he's like, "Well, you ready to eat, Tater?" I said, "Yeah." So we go in there, and I eat a hamburger with a fork.
Mm-hmm.
He was making fun of me because I ate my hamburger with a fork. But after that, you know, we dated for About 2 months.
Well, let me just stop you there. Okay, so he sounds like a sweetheart. I mean, from the get go. Did he drink?
No, when I first met him, he only smoked cigarettes. That was it.
Nothing that would alter the mind.
Nothing that would alter the mind.
Okay, all right. So y'all dated for about 2 months, and then what happened?
We were at Walmart, and he said, "You want to get married?"
Whoa, 2 months in. He was probably already thinking about this at Applebee's. Yeah.
He said, "You want to get married?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Like for real?" He's like, "Yeah, you want to get married?" I said,
"At Walmart?"
"Yeah." And then we go over to the Walmart jewelry counter.
I mean, we're here.
He said, "Pick your ring out." I was like, he's like, "But keep it under $300."
That is so sweet. I mean, I'm talking about this. Look, you can't get any more country than that. I guess. Look, I bet at the like right after they left the courthouse. Did y'all have a wedding?
We got Todd married us. That used to be at the Point. Todd Sanders. We got married in his living room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have your what's the thing after a wedding? I've never been married, so what's the thing after
reception?
Reception. Did you
No,
have?
we went
Did you have?
no.
Did you have the reception at Waffle House? That would have been just as country as you can get.
No, we went to the coast. We went to Hard Rock. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on. I'm just picking at you about that.
But yeah, and he was so proud that
Sure.
he was so proud. Like
absolutely.
when we were getting married, he started crying. Like
6'4", and he was crying.
He was crying.
This dude, look, let me tell you, this dude sounds like a sweetheart. I about want to marry him.
And then we decided that we were gonna, have a kid together. Okay. And we had a bonfire at our house, and it dawned on me, I've been a little late.
How old were you at this point?
Let's see, my baby's 9, so 35, 36.
35? Okay.
Yeah. I told him I thought I was pregnant, and he went and got like 10 pregnancy tests. And he's like, "We're going to take him in the morning because the box says the morning pete's the strongest."
Okay.
I said, "Okay."
That makes sense. He's a smart guy.
I said, "Okay." Well, he went back outside, so I'm impatient. So I go get a couple of them, and I take them, and it says I'm pregnant. And
awesome.
I'm like, I'm trying to hold it in, not tell nobody.
Yeah.
I told my cousin Marie, I'm pregnant. She's like, "We're pregnant."
Yeah.
And then he comes in, he's like, "You took the test without me?" I was excited, And we had Connor. Connor was premature. But Robert didn't start, going with his mental health. He didn't start having mental health issues until after Connor was born. And
how old was Robert at this time?
He was 3 years older than me. So
mid-30s.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he after we had Connor, his mental health started declining. He would get really irritated, kind of bipolar, stuff like that. And Connor was 1 year old, and we lived in Pearl, and Robert tried to kill himself.
Really?
In our house. He cut his wrist, and
so at this point, it's not drug related or anything like that.
It's not drug related
this is
at that time.
Mental.
It's just mental
issues. Okay.
And he cut his wrist, and he cut him really bad. He had to go to the hospital. He stayed in the St. Dominic mental health facility for a little while, and he got out and was on meds. He did real good for a year. He did real good. You couldn't have, asked for a better person. He worked, took care of his mental health. When he started feeling better, so he stopped taking his meds. And when he stopped taking his meds a year later, during that 1 year after he stopped taking his meds, we moved 7 times because we would get through out of every place because he would fly into rages.
Really?
Yeah.
And did you talk to him about that, getting back on his medications and things like that?
Because I told him I was going to leave.
Okay.
And so he went.
This is 5 years into your marriage, right?
Yeah, I told him I was going to leave. So he went in and he got back on his meds. He was doing fine and stopped taking them again. And he was really irritated one day. We were at my parents' house because we had to move in with my parents. And he was really irritated. He stood in the middle of the road with a box cutter and cut his own neck open.
Wow.
And he fell to the ground, and I was trying to help him. The police came, and they were trying to help him because his neck was cut wide open.
Mm-hmm.
He went to after that he went to Whitfield for a while, and he did good. And then all of a sudden, stopped taking the meds again, and he would go into these rages, punch walls, try to attack the neighbors. But he didn't attack me or anything. He just would fight the neighbors and stuff. And he tried to kill himself again in the church parking lot in Robin Hood.
See, I feel like, and I want to talk about this for a second because I don't know that much about it, but as far as like mental disabilities and things like that go, I think some of it has to do with demonic oppression, because this man was in his mid-30s and he didn't have any issues with his mental mentality up until he was in his 30s. It just happened all of a sudden. Like,
no, he's had mental health issues his whole life.
And
he always believed in God up until the last 2 years of his life. He kept telling me, "Go pray to your fictitious God."
See, these are attacks of the enemy. It's obvious that it is. I mean, to me, I mean, when somebody says things like that and they fly off the handle and in these rages and attack neighbors and things like that, this is the enemy in your ear. I mean, it's very obvious that this is the enemy in your ear, because we know that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And this is what they were trying to. This is what they were doing to this man, is they were trying to kill, steal, and destroy not just him, but his loved ones around him, and even his neighbors and things like that. And I'm not saying that all mental illnesses revolve around that, but I'm saying in this particular case and a lot of particular cases, I believe that it is.
Yeah. The last year of his life, he I think that's when he really got back into drugs, started doing meth. And
well, hold on, let me start. Okay, so let's back up. When did the drug use come into play?
He did, the last time he tried to kill himself in the church parking lot, he when he went to Whitfield, he tested positive for methamphetamine.
Okay, did you have any idea that he was using methamphetamine?
No, he told me it was because he was snorting Adderall.
Okay.
And
that's amphetamine, but it's
the doctor said no. That's what the doctor
told
there's
a
me.
difference.
The doctor
said difference.
The doctor said no. He's not snorting Adderall. He's using meth.
Yeah.
And me and him talked, and he said, and he finally admitted that he did it, and that he said he was going to go to Region 8. He was going to do what he needed to do, but he lost his health insurance, and he didn't want to pay Region 8, so he stopped going. At that point in time, I had just got tired, because he wouldn't take care of his mental health. And so I was like, okay, I'll go to work. I'll be a mom. I'll be a wife when he needs me to be a wife.
Yeah.
Because I was just to the point to where let Robert do what Robert wants to do.
Yeah.
Because I loved him and I didn't want to get a divorce.
Sure.
And, now going to therapy and stuff, they said I had a trauma bond with him. That,
Which could be compared almost like a soul tie.
Well, I guess so.
Yeah.
Because they said that, my dad being an alcoholic and the way my dad was, that I think that's how love's supposed to be, is that.
Yeah. You thought that it might be normal.
Yeah. That
this is what it's all about.
It should be chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos.
That this is normal. This is normal behavior for you because you were used to it growing up.
Yeah.
Which we know it's not.
It's
this
not.
is not
It's
true
not.
love.
Yeah,
no.
it's not.
Mm-mm.
But he started. My brother went to jail 4 weeks before Robert died. My brother went to jail because he got caught with methamphetamine and stuff, and then he violated his probation and all that stuff.
Let's talk about your brother for a second. Okay, so, all right, so your brother, you said earlier that your brother had done 9 years?
Okay. When he was 19, he got convicted of statutory rape because on drugs, doing stupid stuff.
Yeah. Bad decisions. Yeah.
He got like 25 years for that. And this state's mandatory on sex crimes.
Yes.
And he got out, he did some time, got out, and violated with drugs, went back, got out, violated with drugs, went back, got out, violated with drugs, went back. And this last time, they gave him 18 mandatory years.
Okay. So, all right. Now, your brother, he's obviously, from what I can gather, is he the one that was supplying or giving your husband methamphetamine, do you think? Is that how it started with the methamphetamine with your husband?
He plugged him into the resources.
I see.
He's like, well, this is where you can get it from.
Okay.
And it's, I've had to pray. I've done a lot of forgiveness when it comes to my brother, because when he went to jail, he could have said, hey, sis, look, Robert's on meth. I knew something was wrong with him, but I didn't know that he was doing meth like he was. And my brother, when he went to jail, Robert was lost because that was his best friend. And, he got really depressed. He moved to the shed.
Your brother did?
No, my husband.
No, your husband moved into the shed.
He said, I want to go live in the shed. I said, okay, go live in the shed.
Yeah.
You're
you're like, okay,
I didn't want to fight with him, you know?
I understand that. But it's just so strange that he would want to move out of the house with his wife and his child and move into a shed. But you know what it is? It's the enemy in his ear that's trying to separate him from his family.
But at nighttime, he would walk the streets.
Mm-hmm.
When he wasn't working, he would walk the streets of Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
He would, he started doing crazy stuff. My son-in-law told me, Robert's on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what do you mean he's on the roof? He's like, he done put a chair up there and he's got a light and everything. His cooler's up there.
Yeah,
and
this
I
is
asked,
straight up demonic oppression.
and I said, I go outside and I was like, what are you doing? Because it's like 2:00 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm protecting y'all. I said, from who? He said, the shadow people.
Look, I'm glad you said that, because I can tell you that in my travels through darkness, he was literally seeing those things, because I saw those things, and these things are literally real, and this is what's going on around us that, people can't see. These things are literally there, and it's real.
And he
So in his mind, I can tell you, in his mind, he was literally protecting his family.
and he put cameras everywhere.
Yeah, that's
had
very common
cameras.
for meth heads, I promise
We had
you.
cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
He even put I would sit in the recliner all the time and be on my phone. He put a camera that would point down on my chair so he could, because he was so convinced that I was out to get him. He wanted to see what I was doing on the phone. I'm like, here's my phone, take it.
That's the enemy in his ear. I promise you. I've been through all this, and so I'm sure a lot of our listeners and a lot of, from my podcast, the ears that I want this to reach are the ones that are still in that life.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to get this out there too, is to let them know that, there is a way out of it.
Yeah.
And,
And then when I realized he had got really bad, when I woke up one night and he had took my van apart.
straight up spiritual warfare. You ever take apart a lawnmower just because?
I sure did, brother.
Hey, Danny, if you feel like it, look, Danny, listen, if you got anything to say, you chime in at any time, because
This is the story of my life, man.
I'm
Meth and taking crap apart, man.
yeah. Hey, if anybody ever throw you a coloring book, you'll sit there for 7 hours with gel pens. I'm telling you.
Well,
100%.
I had a really nice van. He's like, there was a buzzing in it. I said, it wasn't cranked up, so how was it buzzing? He said, well, it's not buzzing anymore. The electronic doors would not work anymore.
Oh, Lord.
The dinger didn't work. He had took my steering column out, and there was like wires exposed and everything, and I'm like, I can't, they're going to think if I get pulled
How
over.
am I supposed to get to work today? You heard a buzzing. It was probably a little big. Oh, Lord.
And then he had started digging sores into his arm.
That's common. Yep.
Yeah, he had them all over his arms, and I would have to doctor his arms. And everybody's like, why didn't you get him help? I tried so many times to get him help, and he didn't want to help himself, so you can't force him to go. He didn't want help. He was doing his own thing.
Well, here's the thing. So he's in bondage is what it is. Like, he was literally in bondage by the enemy. And when you're in that bondage, you don't, it's, you believe all these lies. That there is no help for you. This is your life. I was literally convinced that I was going to be an IV user for the rest of my life, and I'd accepted that. And he's in some severe bondage. And what the enemy does is he actually puts you in these cycles, because so God is omnipresent. So God is everywhere at all times, right? So the devil can't be everywhere at all times. So he sticks people like Robert and me and Danny, meth in these cycles to keep us still in that same cycle so he can come back to us and torment us again later or send his little minions to do the same.
Yeah, and you know what? That cycle always 100% of the time started with Adderall.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he, he had got so bad. He was stealing my needles after I would use, like I'm diabetic and I'm type 1. I have to take insulin. He would like get my stuff out of the garbage and reuse it.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you something. Look, something special about this particular episode is that Jolana is coming at, or may I call you JoJo?
Yeah, that's
JoJo is coming at this episode, coming in from a different whole perspective of addiction because she has never done drugs in her life, and drugs literally destroyed her life. Literally.
Yeah.
So this goes back, to how, you can see how drugs and drug addiction could make her very judgmental in a way. I mean, it's like that lifestyle that her husband was living, and her brother and her father and all of that, that would literally probably upset anybody at that whole community.
Yeah.
The drug community. And so with that being said, before we get to the meat of this, how do you feel about addiction now?
I realized that it's brought on by the enemy. That there was somehow there was a door open where the enemy could get in, and addiction. That's how addiction started.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it totally different now. I look at it as that's somebody's child. No matter if you don't like that, somebody loves them.
Yeah, that's somebody's mother, that's somebody's brother, that's somebody's uncle, that's somebody's father. That somebody loves that person. So you see when you see these people in public that are in that bondage of methamphetamine and they're acting weird and acting crazy and doing crazy things, people laugh at that and poke fun of it.
I was guilty of that, but I don't do that now.
Yeah, because you've been through it, and you saw this and witnessed it. Your husband and your brother go through the same thing.
Yeah, because when my husband died, and it was on the news, and you know how news feeds on Facebook, people comment, people was calling him a crackhead and stuff like that, and he wasn't a crackhead.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a good name to call anybody.
And how can these people call themselves Christians when we're called to love them anyway?
Yeah.
You're not supposed. That is not a Christian way to act, and it's like being judgmental like that. Like if you're in a church and somebody walks into that church dirty from head to toe, and you can tell that they are in that bondage, and you turn your nose up to them, then you don't belong in.
Exactly.
It's like if you're in a church that is my butt. What up, Eddie Poole? I'm about to quote you. I know you're watching. Shout out Eddie Poole. I believe, let's see, how did Eddie say at that time? If you're a church that's not seeking the lost, then you are the lost.
Yeah.
Okay? And while I'm doing shout out Donna Mott. I love you. Angela Jackson. Hey. And anyway, so continue.
And, a week before he passed away, I woke up in the middle of the night, and he was on top of me, and he had a knife. The knife that
is this the first time that he attacked you?
Yeah, he was on top of me with a knife, and I was stunned. Like, I said, "What are you doing?" And he tells me he puts the knife on my arm, and he rakes it down my arm. He's like, "I want to know if your insides is as pretty as your outsides."
Oh, wow!
And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking to myself,
I bet you were terrified.
I was. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? Because he was not little, but, he had lost a lot of weight, but he was still a big man. And he had, he pinned me down. And just like that, he snapped out of it. And he's like, want to go Waffle House?
Jekyll and Hyde.
Snapped out of it just like that.
Jekyll and Hyde.
And you want to go to Waffle House? I said, 3:00 in the morning. I'm not going to Waffle House right now.
Baby girl, Waffle House is always open.
Yeah, but
I got to say, I agree with him on that one, man.
Yeah.
And the kids heard it. Like my daughter, she's like, I heard him in there. And the kids, after he died, my son's like, I used to put something against the door when I went to sleep because I was scared he was going to come in there.
Is he still living at the shed at this point? In the shed?
He's in and out of the shed. Like, he would come in the house at night and just pace back and forth, you know?
Okay, all right. Let's talk about the shed for a second. I got to know about the shed because me, as a former methamphetamine user, I can tell you this thing was probably decked out. He probably had monitors in there, probably had booby traps around there, cameras all over.
Oh, he would
it,
know if you went in the shed.
Yeah.
He was like,
probably had 6, 7 locks, and I mean,
he's like,
did he have obviously didn't have a bed in there because we don't sleep.
no, he had a cot in there, but it had clothes on it.
Okay.
But he's like, I know if y'all go in the shed and touch stuff. Like, he would set stuff up. Like, he would know if you touched his stuff. And then he had started letting his hygiene go. He'd always been a real clean person. He got to where he would take a bath like every other day.
I mean, I'm telling y'all, this is straight up spiritual warfare going on with this man.
Now, 4 days before he dies, he goes and he gets clean shaved.
Mm-hmm.
He's back to his, like, he's perky, everything. He going to work and, you know, being okay, you know, those 2 days. The night before he died, which was the 20th.
That's actually, let me say this. This is the 2-year anniversary coming up in 2 days of this happening.
The 21st,
to JoJo. Yeah, the 21st.
Yeah, the 20th, he got home from work and I made his favorite food, country fried steak, mashed potatoes and gravy.
Girl, I bet you can cook.
I can. And I fixed his food and he ate. And that night, he actually fell asleep on our bed. He fell asleep across the bed. So I said, I'm not waking him up. Because I had a recliner in my room, I said, I'm just going to sleep in the recliner because he fell asleep long ways across the bed. So I slept in the recliner. I woke up about 3, he was gone.
3 in the morning?
Yeah. And so I went to the kitchen window, and he's not in the shed because the light's not on. And so I go back to bed. Well, he comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and he's really irritated, like real irritated. He's mad at the neighbor. He said something happened, and I found out after a while why he was mad at the neighbor. He had gave the neighbor money to buy him an 8-ball, and they did not bring his 8-ball.
Oh, I bet he was upset. I know I'd be upset back then. I mean, you know. Yeah, so that probably set him off.
He was really irritated, you know, that morning, real irritated. And I don't know where he decided that morning that, you know, it was going to be a bad day. Because he. All
right, now we're about to get into it. Like, I mean, let's start right there.
He had 2 things of Evan Williams eggnog, and he had crushed the Xanax up and put it in the Evan Williams eggnog and drank it.
Wow.
And that was in the morning time.
That was for breakfast. That's how, yeah.
And he went in his Jeep, and he was asleep. I was like, thank God he's finally asleep. He's sleeping. I'm gonna cover him up. So I covered him up because it was in December. It was kind of cold. I covered him up, and I went out there around 12, and me and him talked, you know. I sat there, and he's like, you don't love me. I said, I love you. I said, you don't know how much I love you. I said, most people would be done jump ship by now.
Yeah, you're complete and total stand by your man.
Exactly.
You're a stand by your man woman.
And he was just, you know, in and out of sleeping. And so I said, okay, when my baby got home, he said, Daddy's asleep in the Jeep. I said, okay, well, let's go out there and wake him up. Get out there. He's got foam around the mouth. His lips are blue. I immediately called 911. And he had the heater on in the car, so I turned it off and took the keys. And I'm on the phone with 911, and he comes to, and he screams at me, give me my effing keys. I said, you're not getting these keys. He's like, give me my keys. And he's like snatching them out of my hand. He snatched them out of my hand. He puts, he cranks the Jeep up. The door is open to the Jeep because I'm trying to get him not to leave. Yeah. And he backs up and hits me with the door and knocks me to the ground. He goes in reverse so fast, he lands in the woods across the street. Busted both of the back tires. And then I'm screaming like, somebody help me, because it was just me and my baby at the house.
Yeah.
He takes off, and in front of our house there's a curve and there's a mud pit. He goes straight into the mud pit. Jeep is sinking in the mud. I'm screaming, stop, stop, stop. And my baby's standing on the porch and I'm standing in the road. The police is coming down the road. Now I called the police at 3:00. He was dead by 3:28.
All right, let's talk about those events, okay? And
okay. I'm running. I'm on the road. The police is coming. The police get out of the car. I said, he's on something. I don't know what's wrong with him. Something's wrong with him. And they're like, get back, get back. So, I stand back, and they they're getting out. They didn't get out, guns drawn at first. They're telling him, get out of the vehicle, get out of the vehicle. Well, he gets out of the vehicle. He jumps out of it like Rambo, like
a spider monkey.
Super strength.
Yeah.
Eyes black as night.
Yeah.
Like his eyes were so black.
Full on demonic
and
oppression.
I'm
spiritual
hollering
warfare.
his name, and he never looks at me. Never looks at me. And I didn't realize at that time that he had knives in his hand.
Yeah, this was not your husband.
He does his neck like this, and it's on the body cam footage. He pops his neck back and forth like this. He had the knives in this thing on his back. He pulls them out, holds them, says, "Come get you some." That's what he tells the police. They tase him 4 times.
Wow.
He rips the tasers out of his chest and says, "Is that all you effing got?"
Oh, my God.
And everyone's like, why didn't they shoot him in the leg? Why didn't they shoot him in the hand? Well, after I got all his paperwork and everything from NBI, they shot him in the arm first. Then they shot him in the leg, and he still was coming at them. So they
had no choice.
They had no choice.
They had no choice. They were protecting themselves.
They shot him.
It is.
Then they shot him in the stomach.
Oh, yeah.
And altogether he was shot 6 times.
And tased 4 times before that, and that still didn't stop him.
He hit the ground. He was dead instantly.
Yeah.
He was dead instantly. And I'm standing there like in shock.
I imagine.
Like, did this just really happen? I'm standing there. I'm hyper, like, I'm throwing up and everything.
Are your children outside too now?
My baby's on the porch and he sees it all.
Oh my God, man.
And
bless his heart.
Then
man.
the officer's like, get back. I wanted to run to him, but they wouldn't let me. And he's laying on the ground. I knew he was dead in my heart. I knew he was dead. And so I'm standing there, and I feel something like come over me. And I want to say it was the Holy Spirit.
It probably was.
Because I felt like this warmness, and I started to cry. And I said, he's dead, isn't he? And the officer's like, get back, just get back. And then within 10 minutes, everybody from the sheriff's department was on our street. They had done blocked both ends of the road off, barricades. They had the mobile command unit and everything.
Wow.
And they would not tell me anything. One of the officers, a detective, I don't know his name, he came to my house. He said, you need someone to come get your child right now, because they wouldn't let nobody come to the house. They took my phone. I said, well, I have to call somebody. So I called my daughter, and she's like, what's going on? What's going on? I said, Robert's been shot. And she came and got Connor, and I stayed at my house on the doorsteps alone, and they didn't send a female deputy down there with me. I was thinking, now that I look back, why did they not send a female deputy down there with me? I sat on my doorsteps 4 hours by myself while he lay dead in the front yard, in the road in front of the house. And drones were flying over from TV stations and stuff. Somebody took a picture of his body laying on the ground, and it was on YouTube. My neighbor tells him his name, and his family finds out from the news that he's dead.
Wow.
And during that 4 hours, NBI comes to the house, and they said, Miss Rushton, as you know, he's deceased. And I'm still in shock, And what really hurt was the neighbor that didn't get him his 8-ball walked through the woods when he was laying on the ground dead. And he's like, do you need anything? Do you want me to take the dog out? He knew that he had been doing drugs and stuff, and he never said anything. He, in my face.
No accountability.
No accountability.
Yeah.
And, well, when they wrapped up everything, one Officer Brett McAlpin, well, he's in jail now, but he brought Robert's Jeep to the house. And he told me he's sorry this happened. He said, I want you to call me in the morning. He said, we have to take his body to our thing so they can do an autopsy there. And he said, then David Ruth is going to take him to the crime lab. And he said, I'm going to try to expedite the process because they're really backed up at the crime lab with bodies.
That's like a slap in the face, kind of.
And I'm like, I'm still in shock,
Yeah.
And then after all the police left and stuff, people was coming to my house. And I'm still sitting there just in shock, like I can't believe, this is happening. Like, did this really just happen?
Yeah.
And so I go to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I fell asleep maybe an hour. His phone went off at 4 o'clock in the morning because that's what time he got up for work. And it woke me up. So I took the dog walking, and the dog automatically went to the spot.
Oh, my word.
To the spot where he died at. And she laid there and she was crying. I sat in the road with her and cried for like an hour. But then that morning at 8 o'clock, I called the sheriff's department to talk to Brett. And, he was through the whole process of everything, keeping me up to date, with everything. He kept me up to date.
Yeah.
If I needed to talk to him, if I went up to the sheriff's department, him or Paul Holly would see me and talk to me. They kept me up to date. I've never talked to the sheriff. I've always talked to Paul Holly or, Brett.
Yeah.
But when the crime lab had Robert and they lost his body.
What?
The lady from the funeral home calls me and she said, Miss Rushton, and she's like, I'm so sorry. But she said, we went to the crime lab to get your husband and they don't know where he's at.
How do you lose a body?
They sent him to a funeral home, picked him up by mistake.
Oh.
And so they found him at another funeral home. And so the funeral home we hired, his parents hired, went and picked him up. And we had his funeral, on New Year's Eve. And it was really hard.
I can imagine.
And when I was getting ready to go to his funeral, the funeral home called me and said, I need you to bring a long sleeve shirt. I said, well, I want him to be, cremated in the shirt that he wore when we got married. They said, well, we had to make him an artificial chest, and he had you need to bring him a hat. I said, why does he need a hat? They said, well, his skull was drilled open, and the makeup's not covering it up like it needs to, so we need a baseball cap. I was like, okay. So I went and got him a brand new pair of boots to be cremated in, and they come bringing me at the funeral home in a red bag, the stuff from the crime lab. And I opened it up. His clothes are in there. His boots were in there, his belt. I kept his belt. I'm assuming that his wedding band was in his boots because the boots had blood on them and stuff in the shirt. And I just, I told the man, I said, I'll keep his belt, but I just don't want the clothes. So I'm assuming that's where his wedding band was.
Yeah, you never got that.
Yeah. But after his funeral, I was home alone. And I just got in his Jeep and started driving. And I ended up at the Point on CR night.
Where?
At the Point.
Where's the Point at?
In Brandon,
Star Road,
on Star Road in Brandon.
Let's talk about the Point first. So tell us what the Point means to you. And actually, let's talk about that night you walked in there. Let's talk about that.
I pulled up there because I had been there one time before, but I visited one time. I went in there, and they were having CR, Celebrate Recovery.
On a Monday night.
Yes. And the first person I see is Aubrey.
Aubrey Pridgeon, All Things New Ministries.
And Aubrey is the one that told my brother that my husband was killed, because my brother was in the county jail. Mm-hmm. And I walked to the door, and I was crying, and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I told him, and he knew exactly who I was when I said my last name.
Yeah.
And him and a lady named Rebecca took me in this room. You know, they prayed over me. And Aubrey was telling me that he lost his wife. And
Debbie Pridgeon, yeah.
And that, you know, with God, you know, it's a process with grief and everything.
Trust the process.
He said, why don't, and, you know, I told him, I said, you know, Robert was, you know, a drug addict and stuff. He's like, why don't you stay tonight?
Yeah.
And he said, here's some testimony. Mm-hmm. Meet some people. Mm-hmm. He said, have you ate? I said, haven't ate in 2 days because I have an appetite.
And they fed you?
Pizza, my favorite food. That's what they had. Like, God.
See, this is all a God thing now at this point. I mean, think about it. Okay, so let me ask you this real quick. So at this point, throughout your marriage, how often did y'all visit church?
Oh, I went to Robin Hood Church regularly.
Regularly?
Yeah, but he
didn't go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had God, but I didn't know God.
You didn't know God. And that's
Right.
important. So you didn't have a relationship.
That's
really.
right.
Okay.
I had God, but I didn't know God.
Yeah, I got you. So here's what happened. So the Holy Spirit knew that you were in some serious grieving and knew what you had been through with your father, your brother, and now your husband. And you felt moved to get in his Jeep and take a ride, and you ended up at the Point Church on Star Road on a Celebrate Recovery night.
Yeah.
And they had your favorite pizza.
Yeah, and Diet Coke.
Because this is all God.
Because Diet Coke cancels out the calories from the pizza.
Right, exactly. You can look at it like that. Yeah,
but,
sure.
And then I met some really interesting people.
Funny thing about pizza, though, it's like if one slice is missing from the pizza and then you just eat the rest of it, you really honestly only ate one piece of pizza if it's just like all one, you know. Anyway.
But
so you met some interesting people?
I did.
And they were all drug addicts, weren't they? I bet not all of them there were.
But I met I'm not going to say her last name, I'm just going to say her first name because of privacy reasons.
Right, yes.
But I met this wonderful girl named Melissa. Mm. And she sat beside me in I went into the class, you know, with the ladies. Mm-hmm. And I sat beside Melissa and I was crying. And she's like, we're going to get through this together. And I told her what was going on with me. And she hugged me. Mm-hmm. And she's like, it's going to be okay. And she's like, I love you. God loves you.
Oh.
And I was like, and then she told me her story. And I never seen her after that. Mm-hmm. Never seen her again. Mm. And then one day, I'm on Facebook. And she says happy birthday to a mutual friend we have. And I'm like, that's her, you know. And I found her, and me and her talked, and I told her, you know, that she really helped me that night and gave me inspiration and
Praise
stuff.
God.
And then you know what she tells me?
What'd she tell you?
I really needed this. She said, I've been feeling down, and she said, you made me feel up.
And you did the same thing to me when you sent me that message that day. God uses you as a vessel. But, I mean, like, he answers prayers through you because, like, when I got that message from you, I was really questioning my walk with Jesus. And then, I mean, it was literally that day. I mean, it had been about a week, but I mean, it's like literally that day it was really heavy on me, and I got that message from you.
And, you know, after that CR night, I joined the grief group. We don't have a grief group anymore. It's life groups, you know.
Yeah, life groups on Wednesday nights.
I met Danita. Danita was my group leader at that time, and her and Teresa, Miss Paula, Rachel, a lot of them has really been, you know, my mentors with my walk with Christ, and they've been here for me. They hold me accountable too now.
Yeah.
If they see me getting sideways, they hold me accountable.
Yeah.
They do.
An accountability team is very important in this walk, in this life. Yeah.
And I met a lot, you know, and then,
you know what I love about you the most, JoJo, since I've gotten to know you over the last years, like every time we have an event at CR, no matter what it is, every time I see you, you are serving.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You love to serve, don't you?
You talking about when I gave you all them baked beans?
Yeah. She hooks Brother Phoenix up, man. She knows I'm hungry.
And I did burgers. I do, you know.
Burgers and blessings.
I did burgers and blessings in Robin Hood.
Yeah.
You know, because I said, they're having events in my neighborhood. I need to help. This is my church. I need to be helping. Mm-hmm. So I went, did Burgers and Blessings, and and some people came to the church, and they said my name. They're like, Joe told us, that we're welcome here, no matter. Yeah.
Look at you leading people to the Lord.
But I had a piece of humble pie that day.
Did you?
At Burgers and Blessings, a girl came up there in a car that had been associated with my husband and my brother and did drugs with them and everything, and inappropriate stuff. And I said, I don't want to pray for that car. I seen her, and I said, I don't want to go to that car. And Aubrey's like, you going to?
Yeah. God will put you in uncomfortable situations sometimes.
She was shocked when I came over to her car and prayed with her and gave her food. She was just as shocked as I was.
I bet. Can we talk about forgiveness for a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have bitterness towards nobody.
Not anymore.
I have forgave everybody in my life, and some people have wronged me lately, and I forgot about it, and I forgive and forget.
That's right.
I don't see the need in harboring those feelings. I'm a very, naturally happy person. I don't see the need in harboring all that hate. Like, why? Like, if I can forgive a girl that tried to mess around with my husband and stuff, and gave him drugs. And if I can forgive my husband, my brother, you can forgive. Like,
think about it. Jesus sat there and broke bread with the guy he knew was going to stab him in the back. I mean, forgave him before it even happened.
And people, they're like, I want some of what you have. And I'm like, well, that's God.
That's all God.
All God.
Tell me, how's your, let's talk about your children for a second.
Okay.
All right. So let's go back to where, probably about the first CR meeting, and how did you deal with the children?
Well, I have 2 grown kids, but my baby,
how many children do you have?
3.
You have 3. What are their ages?
A 24-year-old, her name is Sarah.
Okay.
And I have a 22-year-old, his name is Skylar.
Okay.
Have 2 grandkids now.
Okay.
And Connor, he's 9.
Uh-huh.
With Connor, church has really helped Connor understand, that Daddy's in heaven. And the first year of Robert's death, I did Gifts from Heaven. I had read it in a grief group where a lady had, on holidays and birthdays and stuff like that, she would put a box on the table with a note that said, "This is from heaven to you." And I did that to Connor for the first year. And I even, let him go get his daddy a Father's Day present. Really? And I said, we get to mail it to heaven. And he's like, well, what do we put on it? I said, 777 heaven. That's where it goes.
Yeah,
and
that's the address.
And then the funeral home in Pearl, Baldwin Lee has a mailbox. It's letters to heaven. And we go put a letter in there once a month to Daddy to go to heaven. I don't know what they do with the letters, but it
doesn't matter.
It makes his heart... He colors a picture. He writes in his own little words, and we go put it in the mailbox.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. Last Christmas was hard, and I really wasn't in the Christmas spirit. I tried to keep it going, but this year I've got into the spirit a little bit. I mean, I'm ready for it to be over because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to teach him the real meaning of Christmas, and it's starting to sink in. But, it's hard with him because he knows now that his daddy was on drugs. He knows that his daddy had mental health issues. And Connor has autism. And he has
I did not know that.
And he has really bad behavior issues. So he has to take medication. I'm on top of his mental health. On top of it.
Yeah, because that's hereditary.
Yeah. And, because he has so many traits of his daddy. And, I stay on top of it.
Sure, keep his butt in church too.
Oh yeah, he goes in the big church, and because he has separation anxiety, he doesn't want to go in the little church. I'm trying to get him there. It's a process, but he goes and he loves seeing people get baptized.
I do too.
He loves the music. And the other day he told me he wants to play the piano. So
well, then don't take him back there with Lil. Just leave him in there with you. If he loves it that much, and
we're the back row warriors.
I know. I see you in there. I'm a front row warrior.
I would love to sit up front, but my child won't let me. So,
yeah.
So we're back row warriors. But
we'll get there.
Yeah. But I do help. I serve. The food drive. I met some really interesting guys the last food drive that were from the mission house, like the recovery house, and Connor was there, helping and stuff because he loads boxes and stuff. And
Yeah.
I was talking to some of the guys, and I told them that, told them the story about my husband, and they're like, "You're a saint." I said, "No, I'm not a saint. I'm just Joe from Brandon, Mississippi."
Yeah.
But
Well, be in the hands and feet of Jesus. I mean, with everything that you've been through in your life, it's amazing. This is an amazing testimony. I love it because, you bounce back from it so hardcore, and that's why I look at you as a black sheep warrior. I mean, just like for real. I mean, like you've taken the hits, you've taken the licks. And
I know God has a plan for my life. He doesn't take away
yeah.
from you and not give it back.
That's right.
I know He has a plan. He's going to lead
Plans for
me.
you to prosper, not to hurt you.
Yeah, He's gonna lead me places, and I can say I've been blessed. These last 2 years with great friends, great family, my church family. I've been so blessed. I couldn't have made it without my church family this last 2 years.
Without a doubt, that's so important. I mean, I'll be honest. Look, starting out my walk about 3 years ago, when I came out of prison, I didn't have anybody. I didn't have. I had no family left. I had no friends. All that went out the window. From my testimony, you've heard it. It's like I burned down bridges that I thought never could be rebuilt. But when I came out of prison, and I didn't have all. When I was in prison, God told me He was going to restore all that to me. And man, the size of the family I have now is just incredible. And straight up, truly do care and love for me, and I truly love and care about them, every one of them.
And God, I feel like God sends people my way to minister.
Without a doubt.
I had a guy reach out to me. His wife was killed in a house fire, and he just randomly came across me on. It's always Facebook.
Yeah, it's always Facebook with you.
But he inboxed me. He's like, "My wife was killed in a house fire two weeks ago." And me and him's become friends, and he's like, "I admire your strength. I'm pushing through because."
I hope he's watching on the live.
Me too, and praise Jesus, got my friend Kimberly in church.
Ah man, Kimberly's awesome. Yeah, I don't see her that very often, but I know I see y'all stuff on Facebook. Y'all are a hoot. I think I read a post the other day. Y'all was in a restaurant.
Oh yeah,
tell this story. This is awesome. I was laughing so hard at this story because this is some stuff I'd pull in public, and if you know me, you know.
Because I'm a comedian. I say stuff at any time.
Yeah.
But we were in the Mexican restaurant. It was me, Logan, Kimberly, and the little baby Kimberly watches. Yeah. And I was sitting on the other side of the table, and there was a chair beside me. And I'm looking over at them. I'm like, well, my invisible boyfriend's over here, and he ain't saying nothing. I said, he's dead quiet. And I said, and they're like, what is his name? I'm like, George. And, I'm just carrying on a conversation with George. So Logan joins in. Logan's like, George, if you're going to be in this friend group, you got to talk.
So he's just right in there with it.
And then the waitress comes to the table. I'm like, George is going to take care of the ticket.
Yeah, George, my boy George here, he's going to handle the ticket. He's going to pay the check. So. And
this man is sitting behind us, and he's like, what's wrong with
these people?
But yeah, I try to, make jokes and laugh.
Didn't y'all skip out of there singing like a follow the?
That's the thing with me and Kimberly. We are hyperactive. She says, "You're embarrassing me," but yet she grabs my arm when we leave the restaurant and starts singing, "We're off to see the Wizard,
the Wonderful Wizard of Oz."
And then we get to the parking lot. And my daughter's in the parking lot because she's meeting us there.
Yeah,
and because she's waiting on me. And I told my daughter, I said, "Well, me and George is going home."
Yeah, he's driving. Let him drive.
And it's been an ongoing joke with us because I'll send Kimberly stuff. I'm like, me and George should go do this.
Yeah. What are you doing tonight? Me and George are going to go see a movie.
I said, George is so quiet. I said, he
doesn't talk back. Yeah.
He's the best kind of boyfriend, the one you never see.
That's right. I make a joke about, I was praying last year for some companionship. So, but
we all do.
Yeah, I know. And so for Christmas, I got a little female puppy dog that doesn't talk. So that's kind of what I was praying for. I was praying for some companionship that didn't talk back. But I got a puppy. but it's all good. I love my spirit.
My thing is, I'm trying to move away from the bad boy image because it's the tall, bearded tattoo man that I love.
Yeah, but I know a bunch of tattooed, pierced out, tatted out dudes that are on fire for God. Yeah, I do. You know.
Where they burning at?
Yeah. Well.
Because I'm trying to go outside my range.
I got you. But see, here's the thing, and I know this. It's like when you least expect it, and when you're ready for it, God's timing is perfect.
Yeah.
You can't look for it.
So I've decided, like, I'm just going with the flow.
That's what that's what God
just
wants
going
to do.
with the flow.
God will drop that person in your lap when you least expect it. And
you
you will connect with them on a level that you have never thought, and then you'll experience true love like you have never thought or ever seen.
And my goal in the new year is to go out and do, speak at more CR things, spread.
You need to talk to Scott Walters.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I bet you have. He's always looking for speakers.
I just get it out there that addiction affects the whole family
without a doubt, and just like we said earlier that that's somebody's daughter, son, uncle, brother, nephew, and it's important to try to reach them and get them help instead of making fun of them.
Yeah,
because you don't know the testimony, the backstory, how they got there. Or
no one wakes up and says, "I'm going to be a drug addict."
That's 100% true.
Something leads them down that road.
Danny, did you wake up one day and decide I'm gonna be a drug addict today?
Man, I got to be honest, I did not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that confirmation.
But on a side note, my brother, all this time he's been in prison, never had the Lord. But now he is deacon of the jail.
What?
And he calls me once a week and preaches at me. I'm like, and
this is this is the one we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, oh wow.
And
he's with God and he's like walking with the Lord.
He's deacon and he's got he does church 3 times a week there. That's what he's doing.
What prison is he in?
Marshall County Correctional Facility.
When does he get out?
2040.
2040.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But I've always felt like he's not going to do all that time.
No,
I feel it in my heart that he's
Let me tell you something. I know a guy named David Spicer. He was doing 7 consecutive life terms and 40 years on top of that. We're going to get him on the show. He is a free man because of God. So we serve a God of possible.
Yeah, I 100% believe that he's not going to do all that time.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and I believe, when he does, I just think he'll do like 10 years and probably get out. But I believe when he gets out this next time, it's going to be, he's going to be the person he was meant to be.
So to wrap this up, let's see. All right, we mentioned the Point Church on Star Road. If you're looking for a place to serve, or if you need a CR meeting, I'm gonna say on Monday nights you can be at the Point on Star Road at 6:30, between 6 and 6:30. On Thursday nights they have one in Byram at Trinity Wesleyan on Sywell Road at the same time 6:30. On Sunday afternoons they have one on Napoleon Avenue in Pearl at the Grace Church at 3:30 in the afternoon. Those are the three main that are in the Rankin County area that I know about. If you need a CR meeting, you can. They're not hard to find if you're in Jackson. You can also reach out to AA, NA. There's one Yana. Isn't that one, Danny? Danny, do you know where some meetings are that people can?
Yeah, absolutely. If AA is your path, excuse me, you can go to midmissintergroup.com, and that will get you all the inside and outside AA meetings that you need.
Thank you, Danny. So, JoJo, thank you so much for joining us on the Black Sheep Recovery Warfare podcast. It was a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
And let's wrap it up. Thank you, Danny.
How long? So how long did I talk?
No, that was good. That was right at an hour.
I don't pay attention to that.
It was real good.
What do you think, Danny?
I loved it.
There's a lot of people assume that I sued the sheriff's department.
message that says you're not lying.
Welcome to the Black Sheep Recovery Warfare Podcast, where it is our mission to debunk the lies of the enemy
Wait, what
and
now?
announce freedom
Somebody
to
texted
those
me and
still
said you're not
lost in
live,
the
and-
darkness and addiction.
That's when you stop the lie.
Yeah.
Beds we moved 7 times because we would get through out of every.
You know, 125 views.
It's not bad.
See if I can alter it. Let's see.
Oh.
Are we going to be set for cameras next week?
No. No, the one that I ordered yesterday, and we still have 2 more to purchase.
But we could still, I mean, we could operate off 2, couldn't we? If we positioned them right.
Maybe, but the it says arriving December 27th through 28th.
I got you. Christmas.
Yeah.
That was a good episode.
It was good.
How's things going with the call-in show?
Test 1 2. Test 1 2.
Slow. The guest keeps on rescheduling, and it's just slow.
Yeah, it'll listen to your podcast. Are we able to take calls?
Yeah.
We can?
Yeah.
Man, we should call Palmer.
Yeah.
Hey, Palmer, what's going on? What are you doing? Where you at?
Yeah, we can do that. That's not a problem.